Before the truth comes the betrayal. Before betrayal. Stories you will never forget.
The night my father threw me out, the rain didn't fall, it slammed. Sheets of water crashed against the windows like the sky itself wanted to drown me. I remember standing in the living room, my duffel bag half-zipped, hands trembling as thunder cracked somewhere above the roof. Dad's face was red, blotched with the kind of rage that didn't burn out. It festered. "You're a useless failure," he shouted, his voice echoing off the walls that had once held birthday laughter. "Go live in the streets, see how long you last." Mom stood behind him, her arms crossed like armor. She didn't say a word. That silence hurt more than his yelling. She was always the quiet accomplice. Always the one who turned away first. "Dad, please." I choked, my voice breaking. "I just lost my job. I'm trying to find another." 3 months, Mia," he roared. 3 months you've been sitting here wasting time, draining us. You're 26, not 16. Get out. It wasn't the first time he'd called me a disappointment, but tonight felt different. Something in his tone snapped. I could feel it, the finality. When I turned to Mom, hoping for a flicker of empathy, all I saw was exhaustion. "Your father's right," she said quietly. "You need to stand on your own feet." Stand on my own feet. With no money, no job, no home. I grabbed my phone, my purse, and the soaked duffel bag. I didn't even take my jacket. When I stepped outside, the rain hit me like punishment. Cold, relentless. The street was slick with light from passing cars, everything blurred and distorted like a bad memory. I kept walking, trying to breathe, but every breath came out as a sob. It wasn't just that they kicked me out, it was that they'd given up on me. My parents, the people I'd worshipped as a child, had looked at me like I was disposable. By the time I reached the bus stop, I was drenched, shaking. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Heard you left home. You okay?" I blinked. Then I realized it was Ryan. We'd met 3 months ago at my old office. He was a systems analyst, calm, confident, always smiling in that easy, effortless way that made people relax around him. He'd been kind to me even when others had avoided the fired girl. I hesitated, thumbs hovering over the screen. Then I typed, "Not really. Just got kicked out." His reply came almost instantly. "Where are you?" Within 20 minutes, a black sedan pulled up by the bus stop. Ryan rolled down the window. "Mia," he said softly, "get in." For a second, pride kept me rooted to the sidewalk. But then the wind cut through my soaked clothes, and I climbed in. The heater blasted warmth into the cold space, fogging the windows. Ryan glanced at me, concern etching his brow. "Jesus, you're freezing." "I'm fine," I lied, hugging myself. He didn't press. Instead, he handed me his hoodie. It smelled faintly of cedarwood and clean laundry, warmth in fabric form. "Where should I drop you?" he asked. I stared out the window, raindrops racing each other down the glass. "Nowhere. I don't have anywhere." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Then stay with me." I turned to look at him. "Ryan, I can't." "It's temporary," he said quickly. "Just until you get back on your feet. I have a spare room." Something inside me cracked open. Not trust, not yet, but something softer. Gratitude, maybe. He nodded. The drive to his apartment was silent except for the hum of the engine and the storm outside. My mind spun with shame and relief, tangled together like wet threads. When we arrived, I followed him upstairs to a cozy 2-bedroom place filled with warm lamplight and the faint smell of coffee. He gave me a towel, a blanket, and a glass of water. "Bathrooms down the hall." "I'll make something to eat," he said. I watched him move around the kitchen. Methodical, quiet. My hands were still trembling, but the storm inside me began to slow. When he set a bowl of noodles in front of me, I couldn't help but whisper, "Why are you being so kind?" He smiled faintly. "Because I know what it's like to have no one." That sentence stayed with me all night. Later, in the small guest room, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. I could hear the rain easing outside, but inside me it hadn't stopped. The loneliness pressed against my ribs, heavy and hollow. But somewhere beneath it, a fragile warmth flickered, the feeling that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't completely alone. Still, as I drifted into uneasy sleep, I couldn't shake a strange thought. Why did he know I'd left home? I hadn't told anyone. The first morning at Ryan's place felt almost unreal. Too still, too calm, like the world had hit pause after months of chaos. The faint aroma of coffee drifted through the apartment, mingling with the hum of the heater and the distant sound of rain dripping off the balcony rail. I sat on the couch wrapped in a blanket, wearing one of Ryan's oversized t-shirts. My body still ached from the cold, but the warmth around me felt safe. Ryan appeared from the kitchen holding 2 mugs. Black, right? No sugar. I blinked. How did you? He smiled. You used to order it that way at the cafe across from our office. You always sat by the window. I hadn't realized he'd noticed that. It made me both comforted and uneasy at once. Thanks, I murmured, taking the mug. He sat beside me, close enough that I could smell the faint trace of aftershave on his skin. You can stay as long as you need. Seriously, don't worry about rent or food right now. Just breathe. I exhaled shakily. You don't even know what happened. He looked at me, his eyes soft. You don't need to explain. But if you want to, I'll listen. And I did. For the first time, the words poured out of me without choking on shame. I told him everything. How I'd lost my job, how my parents had stopped looking at me like a daughter and started seeing a failure, how every conversation ended with disappointment. When I finished, he just nodded. They don't deserve you, he said quietly. People only throw away what they never valued. His words wrapped around me like a blanket I hadn't known I needed. That day, I cleaned up the guest room, folded the sheets, and tried to help around the apartment. Ryan didn't stop me. He just smiled when he saw me organizing the kitchen cabinets. You're really trying to make yourself useful, he teased. I can't just sit around again. I need to earn my stay somehow. He leaned against the counter, watching me. You don't have to. But I like that you want to. His gaze lingered a moment longer than it should have, and something in my chest fluttered. The first week passed quietly. I began applying for jobs during the day, while Ryan worked from home. He'd occasionally call out lunch or coffee break, simple moments that started to feel like a routine. He was attentive in ways that felt both thoughtful and oddly precise. He always remembered how I liked my toast, the songs I hummed absent-mindedly, even the way I twitched my fingers when I was anxious. You notice everything, I said one afternoon as he handed me a bowl of pasta. He shrugged. You're easy to notice. The way he said it, gentle, sincere, made me blush. That night we watched a movie on the couch. Halfway through, I realized I was leaning against his shoulder. I didn't even remember when it happened. When the credits rolled, he didn't move away. Neither did I. By the second week, it felt natural waking up to the sound of him typing in the next room, the smell of coffee filling the air. Sometimes we'd cook together, laughing when the sauce splattered on the counter. Other times he'd tell stories from his childhood, half tragic, half funny. It was the kind of companionship I hadn't known I'd been starving for. But sometimes, late at night, I'd hear him pacing in his room, murmuring into his phone. His voice would drop low, controlled, but the tone was different, harder, sharper. Once I caught my name. Mia. No, she doesn't suspect anything. I froze in the hallway, my pulse pounding. But before I could make sense of it, his voice softened again, almost a whisper. The next morning he was cheerful as ever, pouring me coffee like nothing had happened. I almost convinced myself I'd misheard. Almost. A few days later I got my first job interview in months. A small marketing firm downtown. I was terrified but excited. Ryan, I might actually get this one, I said, grinning. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. That's great, Mia. But, are you sure you're ready? What do you mean? He hesitated. I just think maybe you should take more time to heal. You've been through a lot. Another stressful job might just throw you back into that same burnout. His concern sounded reasonable, but something in it felt off. Like a leash wrapped in silk. I can't just live off you forever, I said lightly, though my voice wavered. He smiled again, but there was tension behind it. You're not living off me. You're here because I want you here. His tone was final. That night, as I lay in bed, I stared at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above me. My heart ached with confusion. Ryan had saved me when no one else cared. He'd given me shelter, food, warmth, things my own family hadn't. But lately, his kindness felt heavier. Like every gesture came with invisible strings. I tried to shake the thought. He was just being protective. I owed him everything. But as I drifted into uneasy sleep, I dreamed of my father's voice. Cold, angry. You'll end up depending on someone else again. When I woke up the next morning, Ryan was already dressed, heading out the door. Work meeting, he said. Back by 8. I nodded, still groggy. Okay. Be safe. After he left, I made breakfast, cleaned the kitchen, and sat down to apply for more jobs. When I reached for my phone, it wasn't where I left it. I found it on the coffee table, screen dimmed. But something was off. My message notifications were all marked as read. My chest tightened. I hadn't opened them. There were messages from my best friend, Lila. Hey, where are you staying now? Can we talk? It's important. Please call me. All marked as seen. I frowned. Then, at the bottom, one message stood out. Sent last night. Mia, I didn't know how to tell you this, but Ryan. The message cut off. Deleted. The timestamp was exactly 11:47 p.m., the time I'd heard him pacing. I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting into knots. Why would Ryan delete her message? When he returned that evening, I tried to act normal. But as he set his keys down, his eyes flicked to my phone on the table. Just for a second. Then his expression softened again, warm and unreadable. How was your day? He asked. Fine, I said, forcing a smile. Just applied for more jobs. He stepped closer, brushing a strand of hair from my face. You're doing great. Don't stress, okay? I'll take care of you. His touch was gentle. His words were kind. But deep down, a cold whisper crawled up my spine. You'll end up depending on someone else again. And for the first time since that night in the rain, I wasn't sure who I could trust anymore. I used to think betrayal came like thunder. Loud, obvious, impossible to ignore. But in Ryan's apartment, it arrived like a draft. Soft, constant, invisible until you started to shiver. The morning after I noticed my deleted message, I told myself not to overthink. Maybe Lila had unsent it. Maybe the phone had glitched. Maybe I was turning paranoid because I'd been alone too long. Still, I changed the passcode. That afternoon, while Ryan worked from the dining table, I stepped onto the balcony. The air smelled faintly of rain and city dust. I dialed Lila's number. Straight to voicemail. I tried again, same thing. Then a text appeared almost immediately. Busy now. Can't talk. Everything okay? Something about the phrasing made my skin prickle. It didn't sound like her. Lila always called me babe or dummy. Never everything okay? I started to type back, but the door slid open behind me. Ryan leaned against the frame. Who are you texting? Lila, I said, trying to sound casual. He nodded, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. Tell her I said hi. I slipped my phone into my pocket, heart beating a little too fast. Later that evening, I caught him staring at my laptop screen as I filled out job applications. Looking for something specific? I asked lightly. He didn't flinch. Just curious what kind of positions you're applying for. Marketing. Same field. He sighed. You sure you want to go back into that mess? You told me your last company was toxic. I frowned. That's not what I said. He tilted his head, pretending to think. Didn't you mention your boss blamed you for something that wasn't your fault? Froze. I had never told him that. Only Lila knew. How did you? He smiled. You might have said it half asleep one night. Don't look so shocked. I wanted to believe him, but the back of my neck tingled. That weekend he suggested we go out. Fresh air, new memories, he said. He drove us to a coastal town 2 hours away. Sunlight spilled over the water, glittering gold. For a moment it felt normal again. We ate fish and chips by the pier, laughing at seagulls stealing fries. Then, as we walked back to the car, a woman's voice called out, "Ryan!" He stiffened, turned. A tall brunette in a blue sundress stood a few feet away, sunglasses pushed up into her hair. Ryan Cross. From North Shore Consulting. His face shifted, just slightly, but enough for me to notice. Oh, hey Claire. She smiled, surprised. Wow, small world. I didn't know you moved here. I didn't, he said quickly. Just visiting. Her eyes flicked to me. And this must be. This is Mia, he said before I could speak. His hand gripped my waist, possessive. My girlfriend. The word hit me like a wave. Girlfriend. He'd never said it before. Claire's smile faltered. Oh, is he? Well, nice to meet you. She gave me a polite nod, then looked back at him. Take care, Ryan. When she walked away, I turned to him. Who was that? Old co-worker, he said too fast. Barely knew her. But his hand stayed on my waist until we reached the car. That night, after he fell asleep, I couldn't stop replaying her expression. Surprised, a little wounded. Like she'd seen something she wasn't supposed to. Opened my phone again. Tried calling Lila. Still no answer. Her social media accounts were suddenly gone. Deleted or maybe blocked. Panic crawled up my spine. I checked my own messages. Half of my contacts were missing. Vanished like someone had cleaned them out. That's when I noticed the subtle notification at the bottom. Device synced. 3 days ago. MacBook Pro, Ryan's. My breath caught. He had synced my phone to his laptop. I locked myself in the bathroom, hands trembling as I deleted the connection. The tile floor was cold under my feet, but the chill came from deeper inside. Why would he do that? Why did he need to? The next morning he acted like nothing happened. Made breakfast. Kissed my forehead. Told me he had errands to run. As soon as the door closed, I went to his office. I knew it was wrong. But fear outweighs morality when something inside you whispers run. His laptop sat on the desk. No password prompt, just the open screen waiting. My name appeared in a folder. Mia files. Click. My heart dropped. Inside were screenshots. My old social media posts, my messages with friends, photos from my old workplace. Even one of me crying at the office, taken from across the lobby. The most recent file was a document labeled, Proposal. 3 months. Objective. Emotional dependency established. Maintain protective control until integration complete. Avoid premature confession. I scrolled numb. It read like a research report. Bullet points. Observations about my behavior. Then a paragraph near the bottom stopped my breath. Subject unaware of prior involvement with her termination at Clearbridge Marketing. Continue monitoring emotional vulnerability. My chest tightened. My job termination. I clicked another folder, emails, messages. One between Ryan and someone from Clearbridge. From HR@clearbridge.com. To Ryan Cross. We've processed the recommendation per your request. Employee Mia J. Terminated effective April 14th. The room spun. Ryan had been the reason I lost my job. I staggered backward, the sound of my heartbeat drowning everything else. My palms were slick with sweat. I tried to breathe, but the air felt poisoned. He'd ruined me, then rescued me. A savior built from my own downfall. Every act of kindness, every meal, every smile, it had all been calculated. My hands shook as I snapped a photo of the screen with my phone. I closed the laptop just as the door clicked open. Mia! Ryan's voice floated down the hall, calm, casual. You home? Froze. My pulse thundered in my ears. Yeah, I called back, forcing steadiness. Just got out of the shower. He appeared in the doorway a moment later, damp hair, plastic grocery bag in hand. Good. I bought your favorite cereal. He smiled. But behind his eyes I saw it, the same glint I'd missed the first time we met. Control disguised as care. As he walked past me to the kitchen, I realized the worst part of all. He didn't know I knew. And if I wanted to get out alive, I had to keep it that way. The next morning I woke before Ryan. The apartment was silent except for the soft rhythm of his breathing beside me. I stared at the ceiling, counting the faint cracks that ran like veins across the plaster, and tried to swallow the tremor in my chest. How long had he been planning this? I turned my head toward him. He looked peaceful, innocent even. The faint rise and fall of his chest, the shadow of stubble along his jaw. It was cruel how easily monsters could look like men when they slept. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake him, and tiptoed into the hallway. My phone was hidden inside my hoodie pocket, the picture of his proposal file still saved in the gallery. I opened the curtains a crack. Dawn spilled in, soft and gold, like it didn't know the world was burning inside me. I knew one thing: I couldn't stay here. Not another night. But leaving wasn't simple. I had no job, no money, no friends left who hadn't been pushed away by Ryan's subtle, smiling isolation. And then there was Lila. She was my last tether, my oldest friend, and she had vanished like she'd been erased. I didn't want to believe he had anything to do with her disappearance, but the pit in my stomach told me otherwise. I needed answers. That afternoon, Ryan went out again for meetings. As soon as I heard the door close, I called every number I had for Lila. Cell, office, even her mother. No answer. Then I searched her name online. Nothing. Her profiles were gone, wiped clean. Until, on the 4th page of search results, I found something. A local event blog. One of those glossy online gossip pages. Exclusive. Ryan Cross, North Shore's rising executive, spotted with marketing consultant at charity gala. The photo beneath it hit me like a punch to the ribs. Ryan stood under soft chandelier light, holding a champagne glass. His arm was around a woman in a deep blue dress, her head tilted toward him, laughing. Lila. Her hair, her posture, her unmistakable gold earrings shaped like crescent moons, the ones I'd helped her pick out on her birthday. The timestamp read, April 10th, 4 days before I was fired. My body went cold. He'd met her before everything fell apart. Maybe even helped it happen. My mind spiraled. Was it her who told him about my weaknesses? My insecurities? Did she help him study me? But then another thought crept in, one that hurt worse than rage. What if she hadn't betrayed me intentionally? What if he'd manipulated her too? I sat on the couch, trembling, scrolling through old messages. Months of late-night talks, tears, shared secrets, all while she'd been seeing him. Maybe not at first. Maybe she thought it was harmless. Connection. Spark. But that spark had burned everything I loved to ash. I heard the key turn in the door. Panic spiked through me. I shoved my phone under a pillow and tried to steady my breathing. Ryan walked in, humming softly, carrying a bouquet of white lilies. For you, he said, smiling. You've seemed tense lately. The scent filled the room, sweet and nauseating. They're beautiful, I said, forcing a shaky smile. Good. He leaned in and kissed my forehead. Dinner at 7. I made reservations. Where? You'll see. The way he said it made something twist in my stomach. At 7 sharp, we pulled up outside a restaurant overlooking the harbor. The same town. The same pier. The same place we'd run into Claire, the woman in the blue dress. I wanted to scream. He'd brought me back here deliberately. Inside, the lights were dim, the air warm with the smell of roasted garlic and sea salt. The hostess led us to a private booth in the corner. I could see the reflection of the water beyond the glass. Dark, endless, indifferent. Ryan reached across the table and took my hand. His thumb brushed over my knuckles. You've been quiet lately. Just tired, I murmured. You know you can tell me anything, right? I nodded, forcing a smile. He studied me for a long moment. You're not planning on leaving, are you? My pulse skipped. What? He laughed softly. You think I don't notice when you start hiding your phone? I pulled my hand back, heart hammering. You're imagining things. He leaned in, voice low. Am I? I didn't answer. He smiled, slow, deliberate, the kind that made my skin crawl. Relax, Mia. I'd never let you go without a proper goodbye. Something in his tone made the room feel smaller, the air thicker. I looked away, out the window. The reflection staring back at me wasn't the girl who'd once believed in second chances. It was someone cornered, fighting to breathe. When the waiter brought the check, Ryan excused himself to the restroom. The moment he disappeared down the hallway, I grabbed my purse and bolted. Outside, the wind hit my face like ice. I ran toward the pier, phone in hand, fingers shaking as I dialed 911. Before I could press call, a voice behind me said, Mia. Turned. Claire, the woman from the other day, stood there, clutching a coffee cup, eyes wide. You, I gasped. Please, I need to ask you something. She nodded slowly. You're with Ryan. Not for long, I said, tears stinging my eyes. Did you know him well? Her face paled. He told me he was single. We were seeing each other for a few months. Until he disappeared in April. April. She nodded. He said he got transferred overseas. Why? The world tilted. He wasn't transferred. He was living with me. Claire's mouth fell open. You're joking. I shook my head. And in that moment, two women, both betrayed, both tricked, stood staring at each other under the cold pier lights, bound by the same man's web. Do you know anyone named Lila? I whispered. Claire's brow furrowed. Lila Jensen. She was at that charity gala with him. I thought she was his business partner. My throat closed. She's my best friend. The color drained from her face. Mia, you need to get away from him. I'm trying, I said, voice breaking. But he won't let me. Claire looked around, then pressed a small card into my hand. My brother's a detective. Call him. Tonight. I tucked it into my jacket pocket just as I heard footsteps behind us. Mia. Ryan's voice. Move. To come. Turn slowly. He stood a few feet away, smiling politely. I thought I lost you. He looked at Claire, eyes flickering in recognition. Small world again, huh? Claire stepped back, shaking her head. You're sick, Ryan. He laughed quietly. We all make mistakes. Then he reached for my arm. Come on, babe. Let's go home. I didn't move. My heart was beating too fast to speak. Now, he said softly, still smiling. Please. His fingers brushed my wrist, lightly, but enough to remind me he could tighten that grip any time he wanted. Claire whispered, Run. And this time I did. I ran until my lungs burned. The night air sliced through my throat, heavy with salt and smoke from a nearby pier bonfire. My heels clattered against the wooden planks as I ducked between parked cars, my breath coming in sharp, uneven bursts. Behind me, Ryan's voice echoed faintly, calm yet terrifying. Mia, you'll get hurt if you keep running. That tone, it wasn't a threat. It was a promise dressed as concern. I darted down a side street and collapsed behind a row of dumpsters, my hands trembling as I pulled Claire's card from my pocket. My fingers fumbled with the numbers, but I managed to dial. A groggy male voice answered on the second ring. Detective Carter Jensen. I didn't waste a second. Claire told me to call you. Mia. Please, you don't know me, but I'm in danger. His voice sharpened instantly. Where are you? By the harbor. He's looking for me. His name's Ryan Cross. There was a pause. Stay where you are. I know that name. My heart stuttered. You what? I'll explain later. Don't hang up. There's an old diner 2 blocks west of the pier. Neon sign that says Mel's. Go inside, sit in the back booth and wait. I'll meet you there in 15 minutes. I hung up and ran. Every shadow felt like it was watching. Every passing car made my body tense. The diner was nearly empty when I stumbled inside. The smell of burnt coffee and frying onions filled the air. A waitress looked up but said nothing when she saw my tear-streaked face. I slid into the corner booth, back to the wall, and stared at the door. 15 minutes felt like hours. Then a tall man in a dark coat walked in, scanning the room. His eyes landed on me, and he approached quietly. "Detective Jensen." He nodded and sat down across from me. His expression was serious but kind. "Claire told me you were in trouble. Start from the beginning." I told him everything. The firing, the manipulation, the hidden folder labeled proposal, the photo of Lila, the confrontation tonight. He listened without interrupting, only leaning forward when I mentioned Lila's disappearance. "When did you last see her?" he asked. "Almost 2 months ago. She stopped answering calls. Her social media vanished. I thought she moved away." He frowned, pulling a small notebook from his pocket. "A missing persons report was filed for a Lila Jensen, same name, about 6 weeks ago. Claire's cousin." My stomach dropped. "What?" "She vanished after attending a corporate gala with Ryan Cross." The blood drained from my face. "That's the night in the photo." Carter closed the notebook. "Mia, I think Ryan's involved in something far bigger than infidelity." He offered to take me somewhere safe for the night, an old family house on Waverly Street that he sometimes used when working undercover. I didn't hesitate. The drive there was silent. The rhythmic swish of windshield wipers filled the car as rain began to fall. I stared out the window, numb, watching the city blur into streaks of gold and gray. When we arrived, the house looked ordinary, a small, weathered place with ivy crawling up the brick. Inside, it smelled faintly of cedar and old paper. Carter handed me a blanket and a cup of tea. "You'll be safe here. I'll dig into Ryan's records tonight." I nodded weakly, clutching the mug for warmth. "Thank you." He hesitated at the door. "If he calls or shows up, don't engage. Just call me." "Promise." "I promise." I didn't sleep. Every creak of the house made my heart jump. Around 2 a.m. my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with an unknown number. Froze. Then a message appeared. "You shouldn't have run, Mia." The phone slipped from my hand. My pulse thundered in my ears. Another message followed seconds later. "You think Carter can protect you? He doesn't even know what she did." "Lila." My fingers trembled as I typed back before I could stop myself. "What did you do to her?" No reply. Just 3 dots blinking. Then gone. I woke to the faint sound of footsteps on the porch. The clock read 6:27 a.m. I grabbed my phone, ready to call Carter, when a soft knock came at the door. "Mia." "It's me." It was his voice. Familiar. "Ryan." I backed away, heart pounding. "Go away. Mia, please. I just want to talk." "You don't understand what's happening. Leave." He sighed. "You think I hurt her, don't you? But you've got it wrong. Lila wasn't a victim, Mia. She was the one using me." My breath caught. "You're lying. She was with me before you, during you, after you. She wanted everything you had, and she played both sides to get it. Even your parents knew. They didn't throw you out because you failed. They threw you out because she told them what you'd done." My chest tightened. "What I'd done? You really don't remember, do you?" His tone softened, almost pitying. "The night of your birthday. Pills. The argument. The car." My mind flashed. Bright lights, screeching tires, broken glass. A woman's scream. "No," I whispered. "That wasn't me." But deep down, some buried memory stirred. "You crashed her car," he said quietly. "Lila's. She almost died. You begged me not to tell anyone. Protected you. I made sure no one found out." I felt dizzy, gripping the edge of the wall. "You're twisting it." He pressed closer to the door. "I'm not. Everything I did was to keep you safe. To build something stable for us. But then you started digging. You were going to destroy everything." Ryan, stop. I love you, Mia, he said. Even now. And then silence. I waited, frozen, until Carter's car pulled into the driveway moments later. He stormed in, gun drawn, but Ryan was gone. Only a single white lily lay on the porch. Tell me the truth, I demanded, voice trembling. About Lila. Carter exhaled, rubbing his forehead. Her body was never found. But her car was pulled from the river 2 weeks ago. There were fingerprints, yours and Ryan's. My knees gave out. He caught me before I hit the floor. Mia, look at me, he said softly. We'll get to the truth. But you need to be honest with yourself. Did you ever drive that night? I wanted to say no. I wanted to deny it until the world ended. But the memory kept flickering. The sound of Ryan's voice whispering, it's okay, baby, no one needs to know. I don't know, I choked out. I don't remember. Carter's eyes softened with pity. Then we'll find out together. That night, as rain battered the roof, I sat on the floor with the lily in my lap, staring at its white petals glistening under the dim light. For the first time, I didn't know if I was the victim or the accomplice. And maybe that was the worst betrayal of all. I didn't move for hours after Carter left. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels alive. Every creak, every distant tap of rain echoing like a heartbeat. The lily lay beside me on the table, its scent turning sickly sweet. I wanted to throw it away, but something inside me couldn't. It was proof. Or maybe punishment. By morning I was too numb to cry. I just sat there, watching the light change through the curtains. When Carter returned, he brought files, coffee, and an expression that looked more like concern than duty. Mia, he said gently, I need to show you something. He set a folder on the table and opened it. Inside were printed photos, crime scene images, reports, police notes. One picture stopped my breath. A mangled silver car pulled from dark water. That's Lila's car, I whispered. He nodded. Pulled from the river 12 miles north of here. No body. But there's something else. He slid another photo toward me. One of a roadside security camera still. 2 figures near the car. One tall, one shorter, wearing a red coat. I stared. The woman's hair was dark, her posture tense. The man had his arm around her shoulders. That's you and Ryan, Carter said quietly. 2 hours before the crash. My mind reeled. No, that's not possible. I wasn't there. He looked at me carefully. You're wearing the same red coat you arrived here in. My heart started pounding so hard it hurt. I pressed my fingers to my temples. Flashes came. Music from the radio, headlights cutting through rain, Ryan's voice shouting, "You're not listening to me." The screech of tires. Then blackness. I gasped and nearly fell from the chair. Carter caught me, steadying me as I struggled to breathe. You remember something. Just pieces, I whispered. He said we argued. About her. About Lila. But he told me she was using him. Do you believe that? I hesitated. I don't know anymore. The next few days blurred together. Carter worked from the kitchen table, phone pressed to his ear, while I drifted through the house like a ghost. He told me Ryan's company was under investigation. Money laundering, falsified contracts, embezzlement. Lila had discovered it first. She'd confronted Ryan the night of the gala. She'd also been secretly gathering evidence. And then she'd disappeared. The story sounded clean, logical, tragic, but not finished. Because I couldn't shake the memory of that night. Or the nagging voice inside me that whispered, what if you helped him? 3 days later, Carter left early to meet with his team. I stayed behind, restless, pacing the living room. I couldn't sit in silence any longer. I pulled my phone from my bag and scrolled through old photos. Before Ryan, before everything. Lila and I laughing in her kitchen, wine glasses raised. Notes we'd written to each other in our 20s. Messages about dreams, heartbreaks, survival. Then I noticed something strange. Deleted folder. Hidden in the gallery, password protected. My heart raced as I guessed the code. Lila's birthday. Opened. Videos. One by one I watched. Lila sitting in her car, speaking to the camera, her eyes sharp but scared. If anything happens to me, Ryan Cross is responsible. He's been manipulating Mia for months. She doesn't see it, but he's using her as a cover. He told me he'd make her disappear if I didn't back off. The screen shook slightly as she whispered, "If I vanish, he'll make it look like an accident. And she'll take the fall." I dropped the phone. My breath caught in my throat, sharp and shallow. He had set me up. From the start. The sound of tires on gravel jolted me. I ran to the window. Black car pulled into the driveway. Not Carter's. My phone buzzed. Unknown number again. "I told you not to dig." The door handle rattled. "Mia, open up," Ryan called softly. "Let's stop pretending, okay? You've seen the videos. You know what happens next." Backed away. My hand found the kitchen drawer. Scissors, dull but sharp enough. "I called the police," I lied. He laughed. "No, you didn't. Carter's out of town, and you're too scared to leave. That's why I love you, Mia. You always wait to be saved." I gripped the scissors tighter. "You murdered her." He sighed, leaning against the doorframe. "No." She lost control. "I just didn't stop the car." Tears blurred my vision. "You used me." "I protected you," he said, stepping closer. "You were drunk. You took the wheel. If I hadn't covered it up, you'd be in prison. Everything I did, the lies, the job, the money, it was for us. For us." My voice cracked. "You destroyed my life." He smiled faintly. "You didn't have one before me. That was when I lunged." He caught my wrist easily, twisting until the scissors clattered to the floor. His grip was iron, his eyes wild but cold. "I told you, Mia. You shouldn't run." Then sirens. He froze, head snapping toward the window. Carter burst through the back door, gun raised. "Hands where I can see them." Ryan turned slowly, lips curling into a smirk. "Detective. You're late." But his eyes flicked toward me, just long enough for me to grab the scissors again and slash across his arm. He shouted, stumbling back. Carter tackled him to the ground, cuffing him as Ryan hissed my name through clenched teeth. "Mia, you'll regret this." Maybe I already did. Took hours to process everything. Carter stayed with me until the officers left. Ryan was taken into custody. They found traces of Lila's blood in his trunk. Her phone, her wallet, her scarf, all hidden in his storage unit. The story made headlines by morning. Executive arrested for fraud and homicide cover-up. They called me the girlfriend who escaped. But that wasn't what I was. I was the girl who believed love could fix what was already broken. The girl who mistook control for care, attention for devotion. And somewhere between his lies and my silence, I became part of the crime. Weeks passed. I stayed at Waverly Street until the trial began. Carter checked in often, bringing me updates and soft words I didn't know how to accept. Sometimes when I closed my eyes, I still saw the river, the headlights, the glass. I didn't know whether Ryan was telling the truth about that night, or if he'd simply rewritten my memories until I couldn't tell the difference. But I knew this. Lila deserved peace. And so did I. The last thing I did before leaving the house was take the lily from the table. I carried it to the riverbank, where the police had pulled her car from the water. The wind was sharp, the water gray and endless. "I'm sorry," I whispered, letting the flower fall, "for not seeing it sooner." As it drifted away, I realized the betrayal that hurt the most wasn't his. It was mine, betraying my own instincts, my own worth over and over, for someone who never deserved it. Maybe that's what healing really is. Learning to forgive the version of yourself that stayed too long. The door to the small motel room clicked shut behind me, muffling the thud of my heart. The cheap yellow bulb overhead flickered like it was trying to decide whether I deserved light. I stood there, soaked from the rain, trembling and clutching the envelope I'd just ripped from Ethan's hand an hour ago, the one with my name written in his messy scrawl. I already knew it contained everything I'd been too afraid to face. The rain outside was relentless. hissing against the window like static from another world. I sat on the edge of the creaking bed, my knees drawn close, fingers tearing at the paper seal. The scent of ink and faint cologne hit me, the same cologne he used to wear when he came to pick me up for dinner, pretending to be my salvation when really he was the storm. Inside was a printed email chain. His messages with her. My mother. Not just messages. Photos. Receipts from hotels. A shared bank account I didn't know existed. Notes like, "She's almost gone, babe. Once she's out, we can finally have peace. You were right. She's too weak to survive without help. Let her struggle, she'll learn. I told your husband she's getting involved with a guy from her old college. He believed me. You're safe." The words blurred. I couldn't breathe. The room seemed to collapse inward, pressing me beneath the weight of betrayal so layered it didn't even feel human anymore. It wasn't just infidelity. It was orchestration, manipulation that had started months before I was thrown out. It wasn't about me being a failure. It was about clearing space. I stumbled to the sink and splashed cold water on my face, staring at my reflection. My skin was pale, my lips trembling. I didn't look like someone's daughter. I didn't look like someone's lover. I looked like collateral damage. The night my parents threw me out replayed in my head like a cruel film reel. My father shouting. My mother silent. Ethan, the man I thought loved me, helping by suggesting I move in with him, just until things settled. He'd been comforting me while sleeping with my mother. And she had been sending him the pieces of me I was too ashamed to show. My failures, my fears, my mistakes, feeding them to him like fuel for their fire. I dropped the papers onto the floor and watched them scatter. Then I called her. She answered on the second ring, her voice soft, too soft. "Lila." "Why?" The word came out like a wound. "Why him?" There was silence on the line. Then a slow inhale. "Lila, you don't understand." "No, you don't understand. He was all I had left." My throat burned. "You took everything from me. Dad's respect, my home, my future. And now you're sleeping with the man who promised to protect me." Her breath caught. "He came to me. After you left. You were broken. He said he didn't know how to help you anymore." "Stop." My hand shook as I pressed the phone closer. "Don't make it sound noble. You both destroyed me." For a moment, all I could hear was the static between us. The same kind of static that filled every silence at home. The one between what we showed the world and what we hid behind closed doors. Then her voice broke, just slightly. "Your father doesn't know." "Good," I said, my voice low. "He doesn't deserve to. Because if he knew, he'd kill him. And maybe you too." Lila hung up. The phone slid from my hand, landing on the carpet beside the papers. I felt hollow, but inside that hollowness, something fierce began to bloom. Not vengeance, not rage, just clarity. I'd been trying to prove myself to people who thrived on watching me fail. I stood up, wiping my face, and started packing my bag. I didn't know where I'd go, but I knew I couldn't stay another night living off the remnants of their chaos. By morning I was gone. 3 months later, I walked into a small cafe in the city's art district, now working 2 jobs and taking design clients online. My hands still trembled sometimes when I remembered their voices, but my reflection had changed. There was a steadiness now, carved from pain and rebuilt with defiance. A familiar laugh reached my ears. My heart stumbled. Ethan sat by the window, his arm lazily draped around a woman's chair, my mother. Her hair was shorter now, her smile tighter, but the same perfume lingered in the air. For a moment I thought I might break again. But I didn't. I just watched them. 2 people bound by lies so thick they couldn't tell where one's deceit ended and the other's began. I walked up to their table. My mother froze mid-sip, eyes wide. Ethan's hand dropped from her shoulder. "Hi," I said, voice calm, steady, terrifyingly quiet. "I just came to say thank you." Ethan blinked. "For what?" "For teaching me what love isn't." I turned to leave but paused just long enough to watch her face crack, guilt, fear, disbelief all tangled together. She wanted to say something, but words failed her. When I stepped outside, the sky had finally cleared after days of rain. The air smelled like something clean, something untainted. For the first time in my life I felt free. Not because they accepted me, but because their rejection no longer defined me. Months later, I got an email from my father. "Lila, your mother's gone." She left a note. Said she couldn't live with what she'd done. I found out about Ethan. "I'm sorry for everything." I read it once, twice, then closed my laptop. There were no tears left to cry. Just a dull ache that pulsed somewhere deep but no longer controlled me. Forgiveness wasn't possible, but survival was. I walked to the window of my tiny apartment, looking out at the sun melting over the rooftops. My reflection caught the light, stronger now, sharper. My voice, quiet but certain, filled the room. I may have been thrown out, but I didn't stay lost. And in that stillness, I realized the truth. Sometimes betrayal doesn't end your story. It writes the first chapter of the one you were meant to live.